All right, here we go. Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis. Start again. Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness podcast. I'm here with co-host Walter Dial, who is tax partner at GRF CPAs and Advisors in Bethesda, Maryland. Our mission here on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building a sellable or transferable business, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We're 100% sure of this. At some point, either your business will cease to exist or someone else is going to own it. And we want to help you to be successful in exiting on your own terms and conditions. And in building a business that's sellable, we've also in these podcasts from time to time emphasized the need to protect the value of your business, not just build it, but then protect it as well. And continually manage areas of risk, like the one that we're going to again talk about today, cybersecurity. This is an area of risk management that we highlight at least annually because it's so important and relevant and becoming more relevant each and every day. And if you've listened to any of the past podcasts on this topic, you've heard us mention the following statistics that we're going to mention again today. 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses. 60% of small businesses that are attacked go out of business within 6 months. 66% are concerned about cybersecurity risk, while 47% say they have no understanding of how to protect themselves against attacks. And again, today, we're hopefully going to help you gain some further understanding as to how to do that. Again, we want to help you build a business that can eventually be sold or transferred for maximum value. And clearly, if you experience a cyber attack, the chances of that happening are greatly and significantly reduced and diminished. And today we're going to discuss how a cyber attack could negatively impact your business reputation. So our topic today is the intersection of business reputation and cybersecurity. And our guest is Darren Hulem of GRF CPAs and Advisors. Darren is a member of GRF. He's a colleague of Walter's at GRF and CPAs and Advisors. The Risk and Advisory Services team, which is comprised of subject matter experts like Darren, who help enterprises, organizations effectively manage risk. Darren and the team specialize in cybersecurity and privacy risk, as well as enterprise risk management, internal audit solutions, as well as other advisory services that provide a complete suite of risk management solutions for their clients. So Darren, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you with us.
Great, thanks for having me in here today. Yeah, I'm super excited about cybersecurity. It's a super fun topic. You can get super granular, or you can stay at the high level where a business owner may not want to get down into the weeds. They want to focus on their craft and grow their business. So bringing someone like me is a great thing because I like to get in the weeds and find things out. And yeah, reputation and cybersecurity are huge things that really tie in together greatly.
I mean, one of the things we're always encouraging our business owners is to hire people to take care of things for them so that the business is not so heavily centered on their abilities. And I think IT and cybersecurity is a great example of that. I mean, no business owner wants to take the time to figure this stuff out. And like Pat was highlighting, those statistics were just amazing, Pat. And most people I really don't think are really aware of the risks. It's really frightening. So Darren, I need to ask you a question because I've never heard of this. You claim to be now a certified ethical hacker. What does that mean? You like only hack bad guys or something?
Yeah, so certified ethical hacker, someone actually explained it to me recently. Probably the best way I've ever heard. It's the difference between like a normal hacker that you see in the movies and everything like that, wearing the hoodie and so forth, and an ethical hacker is jail time. So I sign an engagement letter with the scope of work that says I'm allowed to do X, Y, and Z. Don't take down the network. We want you to test this specific item in here and show us what vulnerabilities we have. Obviously, I sign that. You agree to it, and you obviously pay me. But at that point, what I do in there, if I do exactly those steps in there, and I take down your network or I breach it or whatever the case may be, I don't go to jail. If I'm going to maliciously steal your data and so forth and break in, then I can potentially go to jail if I'm caught, right? So that's
Yeah, okay.
really the easiest way.
So that's part of the service we provide is we basically say, we're going to try to hack into your system. And by doing that, you can kind of uncover the weaknesses.
Correct. Yeah. So that's called penetration testing. So you really select what type of service you want. Sometimes it's an internal one. Sometimes if you're using a lot of cloud services, which a lot of smaller businesses and a lot of our clients are using, they're leveraging like Office 365 or Google Suite or those items out there that are software as a service out there in the cloud that they don't really own. They use them. You can do a little bit of penetration testing for that, not a whole lot because you don't really own that software. It's owned by Microsoft or Google, and then
Yeah.
you have to get permission from them, and they don't want everybody just knocking on their door trying to break in.
Yeah. So in your experience with the different projects you've done for, our clients and others, are there some kind of problems you always expect to see and you usually do? I mean, are there certain weaknesses that are just kind of out there?
Yeah, the biggest ones we really see are with people's websites, and so we do a couple of things. We do like an external scan to really see your perspective or the hacker's perspective of your organization. So we like to do that, and really is pulling open source threat intelligence. So this is information out there anywhere on the internet. So if your managed service provider or your IT department says, "Oh, we monitor everything, we know what's going on in the network, we're really proactive," which is great. That's what you want them to do. Um, this is a technique that hackers like to use. So the IT department has no idea that you're getting looked at. This is all information that's already gathered and sitting on different databases and websites all over the internet. And we really highlight sometimes, oh, we just did an Office 365 migration. Great. Did they turn off your old server, or is that still running? Is that still available for me to connect into your network and get in that way? So that's really the biggest one, is people thinking, not being in the day-to-day IT, which is a lot of people, and being told by their managed service provider, "Oh, we're doing X, Y, and Z," and sometimes they're not. Maybe they forgot it. Maybe they, whatever their case may be. Sometimes things get missed. We are all human.
Well, how can you know if they're doing that? How can you know if your IT department, who you've outsourced or have in internal, who has that response to your question? And the question is going to be, for most of us, particularly me, is this cyber stuff, are we on top of it? It's going to be a question, something like that. And I'm going to ask the IT people that I've contracted, are we on top of the cyber stuff? And if they say, "Oh yeah, we're good," then I'm going to, that's going to probably be the end of my questioning. Are there other questions we should follow up with and to make sure they're on top of it?
Yeah, the one thing that I really like to highlight for people is if the IT person says, "Yeah, we got it covered, don't worry about it," like, we haven't had an incident yet, we're good. That means we're protecting you. Really look at them and say, are we doing things proactive? This is a question you can ask yourself. Do I usually have to contact the IT department and say, "Hey, something's broken again"? If it's the same thing over and over again, maybe they're not actually fixing it. Maybe it's a band-aid on the real issue. Obviously, different software applications have their quirks, like tax software, which I know Walter knows a whole lot about. But there's other things. If you accidentally click on a link and you potentially get a virus just on your computer, maybe not a super malicious one that would take down your entire network, but your antivirus grabs it. Does your IT department know that you clicked on a link and got that virus on your computer? The antivirus cleaned it up and it's fine from that perspective. But did they come to you afterwards and say, "Hey, we know you downloaded this file, it was malicious, we got it off the computer"? But if they're not doing that, then the idea is maybe they're just relying on the antivirus and maybe they're relying on their firewall to kind of protect you and calling it quits there. They don't really know what's going on from an internal perspective.
In a typical small business, in the businesses that we're working with, in the work that we're doing are up to 50 million in revenue, but most of them are under 20. Um, how often should they be hearing from their IT people about proactive measures they're taking around cybersecurity? Every day, every week, every month?
I mean, really depends on how deep in the weeds you want to get, which I would say most people don't want to be super in the weeds. I would say at least a quarterly meeting, just even as a touch point, saying, hey, we've done these different things to cover you. Maybe we're doing vulnerability scans on your network to see, did people bring in new devices? Are they staying updated? And I want to also add, I used to work at a managed service provider that actually hit small and medium-sized businesses. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people on this call listen or on the podcast listening are some clients I've actually worked with or touched in the past. But additionally, yeah, so at least you would want to say once a quarter, at least a touch point, what's going on. And you can really tell, like I said before, you can really tell if they're doing those proactive things. If you obviously have servers in the office or in a data center that you guys that they manage for you, if things are going down all the time, then most likely they're not having that proactive approach. And you can ask for different reports of how many times do people open the same ticket? Is it over and over again? They're opening the same ticket, or is it a different ticket each time? And how quickly does it take to close those tickets? So for example, if Walter put in a ticket about a tax software that keeps having an issue, and then we close it, and the next day he opens the same ticket over and over again, we know nothing's being done to fix it. It's just a band-aid so he can probably get through tax season, but the issue is not actually being resolved. And that's something I would really look at from a proactive approach, is that type of stuff being done.
Good.
So Darren, what's the worst case scenario if you get hacked? The worst case scenario is someone comes in and takes over your system and holds it for ransom. Is that the worst case scenario?
Yeah, that is probably the worst case scenario. And I've actually experienced that with a client. So what happened was someone clicked an email, downloaded a file. Obviously, not every antivirus or every spam filter can block every single thing. There's new things out there coming out every single day. Obviously, Microsoft is a prime example. Everybody thinks they're super secure. They had a breach earlier this year. So even the largest companies still have these issues. It's not just smaller ones. And I want to also add that a lot of people think that, oh, I'm a smaller business, no one's going to come after me. Hackers don't care. You're most likely not going to get a nation state to come after you, or an advanced level hacker that is targeting and saying, I want the DoD's information, or I want Raytheon's design of the next airplane coming out. They just want to take your money. They want to get paid. They think of it as a business model. If I can find John's company down the street and he'll give me $20,000, okay, that's $20,000 I've made, and I have to do that a couple of times, and then I'm probably set for the year. So they send out mass emails all the time and hope somebody clicks on them, which 9 times out of 10 somebody will click, at least from one person per organization, and they're in that way and they have their foothold. And then if you have cyber insurance, sometimes your cyber insurance company will say, well, just pay it, or you'll have to go to your backup. So as you were mentioning, the worst case scenario is you get ransomware, all your files are corrupted, you can't use them. They say you have to pay the ransom. So now you have a couple options. 1, pay the ransom. 2, restore from your backups and hope that your backups work. Hope they haven't deleted your on-site backups, because best practice is to have an on-site backup and an off-site backup somewhere else, usually in the cloud or in someone's desk drawer that's disconnected from the computer completely. Or 3 is start over from scratch. So you can potentially lose all your data. In the instance I'm referring to, my client clicked on a link, got ransomware, took over all their stuff. They actually they managed to delete all the on-site backups. We had other ones backing up down in a data center in Virginia, and it took about 4 or 5 days to restore everything from there. So you may not pay the ransom, but you've lost 4 days of productivity. And depending on how large your organization is, how many employees, that's lost time. They'll either have to redo the work from those 4 days, or if your backups didn't work or whatever the case was, are they being tested, then you've lost all that data in between. You lost 4 days of work plus new work that could have been done during that time.
And would that also be a situation where you then need to notify all your clients that maybe they've been compromised? Or
Yeah, you most likely would need to at that point. One, clients will be contacting you and saying, maybe you had a deadline and you're not meeting that deadline. The clients can say, well, why haven't you gotten back to me yet? Where's my stuff? Like I'm paying for a service that I'm not really receiving right now. So from that perspective, the client's probably going to be asking, and then the timeline has already jumped 4 additional days because you have to start from scratch. So there's that. You have the liability of, now you have to figure out what type of data was stolen. Did they exfiltrate any data, or did they just really encrypt it and hope to get paid? Sometimes the ransomware will say, if you don't pay us the ransomware in 3 days or whatever they decide, we're going to start releasing this on the internet. So now we know, if that's the case, now we know they potentially taking the data you collect and saved it on their system so they can do whatever they want with it. At that point, you need to contact people and say, yes, we lost, say, your social security, your credit card numbers, whatever information you collect about people. And that really determines the next steps for you.
So this is clearly, we're getting into the topic of the discussion today, and how cybersecurity intersects with business reputation.
Yeah, from a reputational standpoint, what you really want to think about is, your business doing enough to instill confidence in people? Do you have some proprietary software maybe that your clients love seeing when you're maybe doing like a financial reporting or something along that line? Or are you just doing something else? You have a great relationship with them, you have your business, and then someone down the street has the exact same business as you, and they can start a new relationship. If you're down for a week, potentially someone will say, well, I need to get my tax return done. I'm just going to go to this next company that I need to get it done. The IRS isn't going to wait because you got ransomware. So is your company doing enough to instill that confidence in people? And unfortunately, for most of us, we're not a target. For example, Target's breach, I know Melissa talked about it, so I won't talk too much about it, but Target obviously had their breach that came through the HVAC vendor. Does anybody know who that HVAC vendor is? No, because they never get in the news, even though they're the person who caused it, theoretically. Is Fazio Mechanical Services, which I've never heard of them. It doesn't mean they're not a great company, but they came in that way. So obviously Target's a big company and maybe they lost some revenue, but for most companies that are in a smaller field, they can't recover as quickly as the one, as you mentioned before. I believe it was like 50 or 60% of companies who get ransomware don't recover after 6 months. They go under, unfortunately, because of potentially legal fees they have to pay. They get a IT forensics, which most managed service providers don't have that expertise to do, to really find out. They can probably clean up the ransomware and restore your data and things like that, but to really find out how somebody got in, to confirm, yes, it was through email, or maybe it was something unpatched, or whatever the case may be. And then you have to notify all your customers. Do you have the manpower to do that? That's probably not your typical setup. Then you need to set up, some states require you to set up credit monitoring for people. So that's an additional cost that your business may not have anticipated. So if you don't have cyber liability insurance, then you could potentially pay in that out of pocket. And that may be why some of the businesses go under.
yeah, wow.
So back to the ransomware for just a second specifically, and forgive the ignorance of this question, represented in this question, but if a business owner says, okay, yeah, we're fine, we have everything on the cloud, so they've moved everything off servers and into the cloud, how does ransomware work in that situation?
Yeah, so ransomware can still spread even if you have, say, OneDrive, Google Suite, Dropbox, Box, whatever service you're using for your file system. So what happens is Microsoft and those companies, they're responsible for protecting people from breaking in through Microsoft's side. Whereas your organization, your company is responsible for protecting people getting in through your computers and then navigating through it. So what would happen, you click on a link, you get ransomware on your computer, and the way ransomware works is it just starts spreading like wildfire, just to take over whatever it can. It just spreads. So it'll go to, if a flash drive is plugged into your computer, it'll jump over to that flash drive. If you have OneDrive mapped to your computer, because obviously that's what makes it easy, most people don't go through the web browser. So it's mapped to your computer, it can jump in there. So it can start spreading, and maybe you don't know how long it's been there. Obviously, if it encrypts everything, then you're going to see, yeah, okay, everything encrypted. We're going to pull our backups, and Microsoft has that set up that you can pull those backups. But those backups only last for 30 days. So the case may be you don't notice. Maybe they just encrypt a couple files that you don't use on an annual basis. Maybe it's like the end of quarter reporting. They encrypt those files, and you come back and after a month or two and say, well, I can't get to these files, they're encrypted, and says we have ransomware. Now your backups potentially don't cover that, so those files are lost and you just have to start over and regenerate or recreate or do the back end work for those. So you are a little more protected when you use cloud services, but I don't want to say that you're immune to it. And the other thing is, how many people don't save everything on the cloud? They save it on their desktop. I know everybody saves stuff on their desktop that doesn't get backed up, so that information could be lost as well.
Got it. Yeah, okay. How you mentioned cyber insurance. Can we talk a little bit more about that for a second? How exactly does that help protect reputation and in any other way?
Yeah,
it helps. Of course, it helps with the liability, but
right. Obviously, the liability is the top one. Legal fees, if there are any. They also will can help set up a call center for you. So obviously, I mentioned you may not have the manpower to, if you have a lot of clients and their data has been lost, setting up a call center for you so you don't have to manage it. They'll call and let them know, this is how you set up your credit monitoring. This is the information that was lost, and you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to be yelled at on the phone all day, which probably are going to still get yelled at, but you don't want to be listening to that all day. And breach notification to your clients, they're going to help you write up what to say happened, what we're doing to fix it, and so forth. So they're going to cover you from that and really get a hold on the public relations aspect, so you don't have to think off the top of your head, how do I write this appropriately to really make people feel that we're doing everything we can to protect their data, that, hey, it wasn't necessarily us, we outsourced X, Y, and Z provider, maybe it was Microsoft, and as you've seen in the news, everybody got hit with this that uses Microsoft or whatever the service's name is. So really to put your company in the best light as possible and really keep your reputation intact, even though you did have the incident.
Mhm. Yeah, okay. And then this is very sobering and somewhat frightening. Every time we have your group on, Darren, Melissa's joined us in the past, as you know. It's very sobering and frightening, if you will. In closing, as we wrap up, how would you recommend that then our listeners monitor their online reputation and ongoing, and then any other closing, pieces of advice or recommendations that you would have?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of things you can do so to monitor your reputation online. The first thing I would do is you can set up social media monitoring. Obviously, everybody has a cell phone in their pocket in their hand. They're looking at it all the time. You want to make sure that you're hitting your clients from that perspective and really seeing what they're talking about your organization. Is it a positive notation about it, or is it negative connotation? So you want to look at that and see do we have a policy that we can communicate, that someone in the organization is communicating back with people? Some companies decide we don't want to have any communication. We're going to put out information and we don't want to engage in a keyboard warrior type of scenario and yell back and forth and so forth. But maybe you want to at least have some communication. Everybody likes to feel like they've been heard. And some of the platforms there are Hootsuite and Brand24. There's a lot, you can Google them, but they really will help you see what is going on and seeing how your traffic on your website is going up or down. Google Analytics. The one we use at GRF is is an open source threat intelligence, the one I spoke about earlier, that monitors I think it's 20 different categories about your organization from a cybersecurity perspective, a reputation perspective, that really highlights on a continuous basis what people can see about your organization. Is there are you low-hanging fruit that a hacker could potentially monopolize on and attack, because they say, hey, we have all these open services or ports which allow someone to come in the front door or window of an organization from a computer perspective. The easiest things you can do, I mean, a lot of people are using cloud services like Office 365, Google Suite, is to set up multi-factor authentication on it. It's free. It does not protect you 100%, so I don't want to lie about that. There are ways to get by it with a phishing link. So you want to make sure people are being trained on what to do, not to click on links, and really testing people. I love to test the tax department at GRF during busy season, because that is the ideal time a hacker knows, hey, GRF's an accounting firm. They're busy, it's tax season, and it's getting close to April 15th or April 18th this year. Let's send them a bunch of email, and maybe they'll be too busy and they'll just start clicking on stuff.
Have you noticed how well I've done? I haven't clicked on any of that stuff.
I know. But yeah, but it's great. That's a perfect time, especially if you can identify when a company is busy, which open source threat intelligence shows you when a company is busy. You can look at their business model online. You can see their strategic plan most of the time, and you can go forward and attack them. So the information you put out there about your organization is also super important to think about and know. From an IT side, if you want to hire a new IT person, you want to put out enough information that they're qualified for the position, but you don't want to give away, we use, say, a specific service. Say we use QuickBooks Desktop 2019. We use an old version of QuickBooks, for example. And there's different vulnerabilities for every software that maybe haven't been patched, or maybe they just stopped using it. Or maybe we're saying we use Windows 7, which Microsoft no longer patches. So if you just tell everybody, hey, we use Windows 7 at our company, now I know this company is probably vulnerable to a lot of different attacks. So you want to make sure you want to give out, like I said, give out enough information that people are qualified for the position, but not too much that you give away all the information and all the possible entry points to your organization.
Okay, so that's an interesting point you just made about updates to software. Or
yeah, you definitely want to update software and not, I would say typically wait a week. Microsoft is very prone to not testing it. It seems like they don't test things first. They like to send out updates. I typically wait a week for most of the updates. Sometimes if there's a critical one, say Russia came in this way from this organization, we recommend patching right away, then I'll typically do that one right away. But the majority of them, I usually wait a week just to make sure nothing breaks, especially during tax season. Walter will come get me.
does that translate too into another reason to upgrade your hardware, like your phone?
Yeah, so phones are definitely a fun area. iPhones, I would say, are a little more secure than Android devices, just because the vetting process Apple does with their Apple Store is definitely more intensive. I'm not saying there are not vulnerabilities on iPhones, because there have been. Androids are definitely more vulnerable, just because it is it's a Linux background for Android is a Linux software, so you can get admin privileges on it. You can remove all the apps that, say, Verizon or AT&T or whoever puts the apps on there. You can remove all of that and customize and root the phone or jailbreak it, as they say in for iPhones. So they're more apt to having issues. Anybody can create an app in the is it Google Store, G Suite, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, anybody can create an app in there and pretty much do whatever they want. You just have to be wary of what you click on and download.
All right, a lot of great advice. A couple of other points you made early on that I think are good to remind listeners of. A couple of best practices, if you will, would be, are we doing things proactive? That's a good question to ask your IT department. Are we proactive in what we're doing? And if so, what do we do? Let's have quarterly meetings to review the proactivity. And are we seeing the same tickets over and over? And if so, what are we doing about it? What's the issue and what are we doing about it? Walter, before we close out here, any final thoughts or questions from you?
No, I mean, this just seems to be one of those things where it's easy for a business owner to kind of not do it. And it really is amazing. And again, I go back to those crazy statistics, but it really is a huge risk factor, and it isn't real expensive to have someone come in and run the test Darren's talking about, just to give you some peace of mind and, shore things up.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and Darren, we want to ask you, is there anything that you would promote? And I'm hoping you're going to answer that question with at least the assessment that you guys do, your team does for businesses, because I think it's a great value.
Yeah.
But
So
if you would mention that again, and anything else you want to promote.
Sure. Yeah. So we obviously have that external scorecard risk assessment that we do that really gives you that hacker's perspective of the organization. I know Melissa's talked about it in the past. It's definitely, I believe it's been enhanced since Melissa talked about it last, from what I remember listening to her podcast with you guys. But it goes through a variety of different tests to see what is being done from the organization from an external facing. We also can do internal testing to see, are patches being done internally on different laptops? Maybe you're a smaller organization that has somebody that wears that IT hat. You don't have an outsourced IT person. You don't have it centrally managed, all the computers. Everybody's kind of like on their own. They're obviously connected to the same resources, but we can do assessments to see, are patches being done? Are those devices that are connecting to your cloud systems, are they secure? Another one that we've been getting a lot recently, and it's really growing in the United States. Everybody's probably heard of NIST, the government cybersecurity guidance. There's ISO 27001. It's another international standard. It's really big in the international community. It's growing. I want to say their growth last year was like 300% in the US from people using it. And what it does is it doesn't have as much red tape as the government. As everybody knows, Walter especially knows from tax perspective, there's so much red tape and understanding what you have to do for your taxes. This is a very plain and simple that can be customized to every organization. So if you're a large organization or you're a smaller organization, you can really get your policies in line and make sure you're protected. Sometimes if you're bringing on a new client, they might ask, do you have policies and procedures? How are you protecting my data? This is something that the business owner should be asking when they engage with other third parties. How are they going to protect your data? Because ultimately, you've collected the data. You're responsible for the data, even though you've given it to a third party to manipulate or protect it or do whatever they're going to do for you, host it for you, store it. But ultimately, you are responsible.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. If a listener wanted to reach out to you and get help, maybe the assessment, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, they can go to GRF's website. I believe there's a contact us form, and usually all the cyber stuff comes to me. You can also email me at dhulem, that is Delta Hotel Uniform Larry Echo Mike at grfcpa.com. Or everybody I think has Walter's contact information. I'm sure you guys can email Walter and he'll route it over to me.
Excellent. Okay, good. Listeners, let's don't forget those stats from the beginning of the conversation. And this one, I'm going to highlight again, 60% of small businesses that are attacked go out of business within 6 months. And so, again, the mission of this podcast is to help you to build a business that's valuable and then protect that value. And boy, this is becoming more and more every day an issue in regard to protecting the value of your business, as well as your reputation of the business. So we would strongly recommend that you take some of the steps that Darren has recommended today, maybe even reach out to him for this assessment that his department does. Thanks for listening. If you want help in maximizing the value of your business or in planning for your eventual exit, you can reach Walter at 301-951-9090, 301-951-9090, and reach me at 301-859-0860. You can also access resources at exitreadiness.com, grfcpa.com, and ennislp.com. Thank you for listening. And until next time on the Exit Readiness podcast, this is Ennis and Walter Dial.